So the last couple of days, thanks to a grant from the Manitoba Arts Council, we were able to bring in a wonderful fiddler named Marcel.
My name is Marcel Happel. I'm from Manitoba, Manitoba. I play the fiddle.
We are commissioning a piece by Karen Sunabaka, who's a Métis composer, who was going to base her piece for us on two fiddle tunes, the Winnipeg Reel and the Red River Waltz. And so we thought the best way to approach that would be to learn the fiddle tunes in the traditional way.
None of us in the trio are really fiddle players, and so we've just been trying to learn some of this style that's not very familiar to us.
Every repetition for me was a layer. I felt like I was going deeper layer by layer and understanding like what I wasn't doing right, essentially, or like what Marcel was doing that I would like to do more of.
The approach that we took at one of the jamborees when I was a kid, we had John Arcand, who was a Métis master, and he would come in and he would teach us by playing the A section of the tune over and over and over, and we would catch on. And the idea behind that, as far as I understand, is that you are really getting the feel.
It's nice when there's nothing in front of you and you can just look around at the people you're working with and listen to the music when you're not looking at the music. That's kind of freeing. So yeah, it's just been, I don't know, felt organic.
So there's something that like it puts me in touch not only with this wonderful tradition that I've not delved into in the past, but also in touch with my own roots. And like there's something about, well, this isn't so much about culture, but there's something about trusting oneself that is that this is encouraging for me, like trusting your ear and allowing yourself to play along rather than trusting the notes.
It's a hope that by learning these fiddle tunes that we will understand, in a way, the historical context of the piece, since she's basing it off of these two pieces, and it's just such an unfamiliar world to us that it's really interesting and somewhat overwhelming to delve into it. Just like I thought there'd be more overlap, but it's a very unknown world, and it's very exciting to learn more about it.
My name is Karen Sunabaka. I grew up in Winnipeg, and on my mother's side of the family, it's a Métis family. So my grandmother is Métis and had been Métis for, well, generations. I have some amazing memories of my grandparents' farm. Music and gathering as a community was just really core to that really strong sense of community in my Métis family. And my grandfather just found so much. Well, there were so many shared values that he wanted, what he didn't have in his own family. I've recently been pulling a lot of fiddle tunes into my music, so probably in the last 10 years. It's one of these funny things where it was kind of always part of my childhood, but then you have formal training, right, as a classical musician, and I was a cellist. And so I hadn't really thought to bring in fiddle tunes because it was kind of separate, right? Like there was my family farm or my grandparents' farm, and then there was like my formal training. And I was always doing both. Like I even fiddled with my grandfather. I was a cellist, but I learned how to fiddle, and so I would fiddle with him too. Yeah, so it's called a reel waltz. It's kind of hard for me to say that that's the name, but I think that will be the title now because I kind of like it. But reel spelled R-E-E-L, and that's just because I'm taking from the two pieces that I quote, or that I kind of use as an inspiration. So the Winnipeg Reel, and then the Red River Waltz.
So as soon as we started to play it, I was really intrigued by it.
After the fiddle session, I feel like I would like to implement more from the fiddle session into what we were doing today. I think we were still playing pretty classically.
She was telling us that it's hard to notate some of the strokes that fiddle players use, and so it's helpful to just kind of tell us what kind of stroke she wants, because it's hard to write down, and that's something that we can relate to, because that was stuff that those fiddlers had been telling us about before.
I like to play with the sonorities of the three instruments, and I just love that, where you have the instruments on the same note and they're so similar in sound, but then there's this, like, the violin is never going to have the same ringing as the cello on that same note, right, or as the viola. So I just kind of like how those kind of play together, but then also tricking the ears a little bit too.
I asked her about, do you want this note to be vibrated or not? And she's like, I'll have to think about that. So we'd played a few different ways, and then she was very open to leaving it to us to interpret.
But then when you hear it, it breathes, right? It's like a piece has kind of not doesn't have its soul yet or something. And then when you actually have people playing it, it just starts to breathe.